So it's not an exaggeration to say this was a game-changing episode of that Shangri-La Frontier greatness. Not only do we get to see, of course, Weathermon's legacy in action in the form of a pretty sick helmet, if we're being honest, it also allows for him to use one of these assistant bots, which, truthfully, I thought was just going to be more of a combat fighter, not something so cool that we would use it to clear the clouds so that we would still have some light. Very cool stuff. But the thing that really threw me for a loop in a very positive way was the fact that they are implying that the big bad wolf understands human speech. Which is crazy because I'm not gonna say I'm surprised that a video game would ever go this direction. I mean, lots of boss fights in video games are, humanoid characters, or even if they're monstrous, they're more in the humanoid realm and they speak back. But when you see a wolf or an animal of that, you're gonna assume it's an animal, right? Like that's like your natural gut instincts as a person. So the idea that this thing is seemingly responding based on the dialogue that Saiger Zero and Sunraku have with each other is pretty insane, and it opens up a whole new realm of possibilities for boss fights, because while you assume if you're going up against a humanoid boss fight, yeah, I mean, it's possible it might understand speech, it's possible it might even talk back to you, but the idea that, I think, at least for myself, and I'm sure I'm not alone, assuming that we were going up against a wild beast, this thing's way more intelligent than we were first giving credit. And I think when you think of the possibilities of VR, it's very easy to assume things like, oh my god, the physical touch and sensation, the smells. VR, if it was to this degree, would be insane. But there's so much more to it. And I think of games like that one alien horror game they made where if you have a mic or a headset on, the alien locates you based on your breathing or sounds you make, and just imagining that to such a higher degree of understanding and responding to human speech, video games would have just such an endless possibilities, and once again reminding me why Shangri-La Frontier is called the god tier video game in this world. Now, of course, I have full live reactions over on Patreon if you want to see my mind break in real time to its greatness over there exclusively. So, overall, they're doing pretty well. I'm still not sure where I want to place my money. I think I'm really 50-50 on if they win this fight or not. They have overall a decent plan, though right now it's not looking too good for our girl. She got impaled very horribly and then went into the wall. I assume what's probably going to happen is start of next episode, she's going to rise from that rubble and she's going to be ready to use her ultimate attack. I'm not sure if I miscounted, but I think she's either one off or right on the money for now having the conditions met, because there's two different attacks she needs to use 5 times. Which is obviously quite the condition given what they're going up against. But overall, I think their plans make sense. I think the way they're handling things makes sense. And I also like how they're incorporating elements that, because unlike the previous fight, they don't really have experience fighting together, and she also doesn't quite know all of the bells and whistles and little trinkets he might be using. So when times come down where the paw comes and it looks like he's squished and he pops out by jumping like a crazy ass rabbit, yeah, she doesn't realize that he's going into something called Inventoria and kind of buying some time. The one thing I do have a question for, and I'd love to hear people's interpretation, because I'm torn on what Inventoria is doing, because this is an online video game. So the idea of like pausing reality wouldn't happen. If you're playing a single player game and you go into something like an Inventoria, outside the game world most likely is frozen, right? Because it's a state that's only revolving around the player in question. But if you're playing an online game, you can't really pause everything around you, right? But it almost felt to me like there was a time discrepancy. Like, time does move a little different. I'm not sure though, because the more I think of it, a time discrepancy would screw with how an online game would work. But I don't know, like the one time when he went into inventory this episode, he was like pondering, and it kind of felt like with how long he was there, there's no way they wouldn't be like, or at least Saiger Zero would be like, where the hell did he go? But then again, the scene in question, the wolf had its paws like static where it looked like it squished Sunraku, so maybe that's why. I don't know, but it was an interesting thought that came to my mind where I'm like, I'm interested beyond that mechanic, because by dealing with another person, like you can't just like freeze their game state, right? Like it just wouldn't work. So I'm not sure if there's a time lag or if it's just really it moves at equal paces, just that wolf didn't move and it gave him a little more time to, refuel on his mana, which even if he doesn't have a shit ton of supplies because they didn't plan for this boss fight, at least he does have a few things up his sleeve. But overall, like the animation was great, the action was fantastic, and I love the idea of Saiger Zero having to use 2 different attacks. I think one was called Satan and one was called Apocalypse. Like she's she's got that edge to her, but her attacks looked awesome. Like her fiery sword of death, like the color and like the smoky glitchy effect that it uses, probably the coolest attack I've seen in this show. Like, I don't know what it is, but it just looked like a Demon Lord sword, and it was awesome. And overall, I like the idea of these two wolves really kind of pushing us back and us having to adjust on the fly. The good news was that because they watched the Zoo Guild fight, they had a decent amount of information building into it. The unfortunate thing is that, they slowly and if not quickly realized that these wolves that they're fighting are a lot more intelligent than we first let on, and it almost looks like it wants you to believe something so it could sideswipe you doing the exact opposite. And the fact that it could seemingly understand speech, I don't know. Like, we don't have a lot of experience with unique monsters, so there's a lot of uncertainties with this fight. If they win, here's the thing. We have seen monsters retreat in terms of like lower class monsters when there is a skill gap. If this creature is as smart as they're making it out to be, it's probably gonna try to retreat, right? Like that is a mechanic in the world. But we could also kill it while it's trying to retreat. That's always a possibility, right? It has the possibility to outsmart us in a lot of different ways. I think my gut says if they do end up losing or it retreats, we're not touching this boss again until Season 3. I don't think there will be another rematch in Season 2. But if they do manage to defeat it here, it's probably going to get confirmed this is the weakest out of all the bosses or something. Like, they're gonna pull the rug from under us slightly and, like, undersell this victory. But I don't know, like, there's a lot of uncertainty, but the idea of introducing potentially a wolf-designed boss that can understand human speech, which means they're limited on how much they can communicate out loud without it responding to us. You have the idea of now using Weathermon some of his equipment, and I mean, hell, even if it's just a helmet, it allows us to use that thing, which is a really fun addition. I don't know, it already has sass to it, I love it. And there's a quick moment at the end after the credits, which is kind of a blink and you miss it, but Emule is with that other player. So it seems that while Emule's plotline is probably linked to Sunraku because he's the one who kind of unlocked it, I mean, Emule's with her because basically if Emule travels with his girl, she'll meet up with Sunraku, and obviously that's why. But I really was under the impression Emule wouldn't do anything with any other player other than Sunraku, so that's also another kind of game-changing moment. Either way, this show doesn't miss. It's one of the best anime. You can't convince me otherwise. Greatness. Simple as that. Of course, you let me know your feelings and theories down below. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course, ring that bell. And like I mentioned, we got those full live reactions over on Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. So today we got Third Dynasty, Arthur Kunha, Coco X Large, Fabian, Ham of Rage, Tran Nugan, Devin Mitchell, Tony X, Spectra, and we also have Monsi7. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care, and you all have a good one.